And welcome back to another episode of The Ministry of Truth. I am your only host on the show because, well, that's kind of how it works. If anybody else hosted the show, then it wouldn't be The Ministry of Truth because I don't know who they are. Unless they're, one of my kids, which two of them are adults, so I guess you could say, yeah, they're allowed to host my show, but not without prior approval, right? All right. So before we get anything today, we're going to go over a little Epstein stuff, little Chicago, a little more deportations, some big ass cities who actually want help from the National Guard, as well as a few other things. But before we get started, obviously, we're going to get started with a song. Get everybody in the great mood. Well, in a mood, not necessarily a great mood, but let's do this. Oh, coffee, bagels, cold pizza, whatever it is you guys want to eat and drink this morning. I'll be back.
From the black of deceiving lies, a new star is born. Now he brings you the light with his hands untied. They try so hard to follow, but no one can. Inside you are so hollow, you understand. Hey, nothing you can say. Change what you've done to me. Now it's time to shine. I'm gonna take what's mine while you're burning inside my life. I gave and you take, and I waited for you, but I made a mistake.
Mistakes were made. But we're gonna head over to the other side of the world. We're gonna little bit of news about China, right? North Korea, right? Ukraine, and Russia.
Vladimir Putin also said today he's willing to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky if Zelensky will come to Moscow. His invite coming as the Russian president flexes his growing military alliances. You saw that today in Beijing.
Putin can come all the way to Alaska. Zelensky, if he really wanted to worry about peace, which he doesn't, he would go have this meeting.
He publicly embraced North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, whose troops are fighting alongside the Russians in Ukraine. Kim reiterated that support. He called Russia North Korea's brothers, while pledging to do anything for its people going forward. With us now is former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Ambassador, welcome. And you hear Zelensky, or certainly the offer here from Putin that Zelensky can come to Moscow. We should mention Zelensky has been the subject of how many assassination attempts allegedly by Russia? Allegedly. Is this just Putin trying to make a meeting impossible with outright saying no to it?
All these assassinations that happened against Zelensky, I've never heard of one. I heard of them trying to get Putin, but not Zelensky.
He's trying to pretend that he's willing to negotiate, pretend that he's willing to make peace. But of course, it's absolutely absurd that Zelensky would go to Moscow, where he would likely be killed or imprisoned
Democrats,
by
these liberals,
Putin.
they're so pro-war.
It's a ridiculous suggestion from Putin's point of
Anytime
view.
there's a
He's trying
chance
to
of
say
peace,
this in a way to
they want to
appeal
talk bad
perhaps
about
to
it.
President Trump and Steve Witkoff, to say, look, he's trying, he's being reasonable, but this is not a reasonable offer at all.
It is 100%
reasonable. They need to meet somewhere on more neutral ground, like Saudi Arabia or Turkey or Switzerland.
What would make Putin want to meet with Zelensky in a, good faith way?
If he felt that he was losing the war and he was not able to sustain the finances of the state while prosecuting the war. So he's losing.
Well, here's the thing. Russia is not losing money. They're still selling a lot of their oil. Russia is not losing the war. Ukraine, active military forces and reserves, they dwarf. Not dwarf. Dwarf would make them smaller, right? Yeah, they're dwarfed by Russia's reserve element, which is over a million. A million. That's a lot.
Money, losing access to hard currency, can't keep that up and keep the state afloat as well, then I think he would want to have a ceasefire. But short of that, I think Putin is determined to continue attacking Ukraine, trying to take as much territory.
This is what I don't like about the media. You got to look at the good side and you got to look at the bad side. But when the media goes and tell you, yep, they don't want this. This is the way we think it's going to happen. And that's where people fucking get stupid because they're going to believe things like CNN, Tucker Carlson, and all these other fucking lamestream medias, to include you, Fox.
As he can, trying to create a Ukrainian surrender by bombing civilians in Ukrainian cities, which he is doing every night. I don't believe
got more
it's going
Russians
to work.
dying
I
than
don't think
Ukrainians,
Putin can
though.
achieve that, but he is incredibly determined to keep pursuing this war.
Trump was asked about the rapidly approaching 2-week deadline that he gave Putin to agree to talks with Zelensky in the Oval Office. He was asked this last hour, and Trump said he's having a conversation with Putin very shortly over the next few days. The 2 weeks thing, he says that so often. Do you
see how America lost their mind when Trump had Al Qaeda at Camp David trying to, not Al Qaeda, Taliban, trying to get a treaty to where we got out of Afghanistan free and clear? He brought them to Camp David. They made that agreement. The Democrats did not want to meet with Putin at all the past 4 years. Trump has met with him at least once. The secretaries have visited Russia numerous times. But it seems like it doesn't really matter what Russia wants to do because the United States and the EU or UN or whatever the fuck you want to call those fuckers, NATO, they need this war. They need it.
This is a real thing, or is this another bogus deadline?
I think we've seen so many of these now. We've seen 1 day, we've seen 100 days, we've seen 2 weeks, we've seen another 100 days, then 50, then 10, now another 2 weeks. There is no credibility to these deadlines anymore. And we've not seen a single bit of movement from Vladimir Putin towards actually stopping the killing.
No movement. He literally wants to meet with him in Ukraine. How is that no movement? There's a reason CNN won't exist next year, not only because Disney is dropping them, but nobody wants to work for them, except for Scott. Scott's the best thing CNN's got going.
In Ukraine. And one other thing I'd like to make a point on here, we need to stop the both sidesism when we talk about this. You know, we hear that from the White House spokeswoman. We hear that from a few other members of the administration where they say it's like two kids on a playground, or it's both sides are fighting, both sides have to stop. We'll see who doesn't want to stop. We have to be clear that the only reason there's a war is because Russia's attacking Ukraine. And the moment Russia stops attacking Ukraine, there won't be a war.
That's not
Why do you
works.
think that Trump...
Russia will stop attacking Ukraine, and then Zelensky will be like, yep, they're weak, and they're going to go right for it and take Crimea, whatever. The one that Russia's supposed to get in this deal.
won't actually... You kept detailing there this many days, that many days. Why do you think...
And if you think it's funny, there's 3 areas in Ukraine that voted to join the Russian Federation. And they're trying to say, well, they voted. It's not democracy because, they might have been fixed. Right? Fuck. I was going to compare this to another country, and I can't remember what country. God damn it.
I think Trump won't actually come down on Putin because the repeated warnings, it's almost like if you're parenting and you constantly threaten your child with a consequence, but you don't deliver. We all know.
Just like Alberta. Alberta wants to vote to break free from Canada and even floating, the 51st state. And then you have the votes for Greater Indiana or Idaho, which wants to take part of Oregon over. And then you have California that wants to divide it in two. And that's going to come up for a vote. So this all democratic process, people that want to leave, if they win, they don't count, right? Is that how this works in the United States, the world? Everyone votes for it, but we're not going to do it because that's what the people wanted. Kind of like immigration. Kind of like these pedophiles. We want them punished, but they don't care. The government could care less. And that's going to lead us into this Epstein survivors, and I've got a lot to say about some of them. Some of you are not going to like it, and I really don't give a shit. But when I saw the Hodge twins had the same exact process of thinking that when I saw the original one yesterday, it lets me know that I'm not the only one that saw it, and I'm not the only one that felt like it this way. And I feel like right now, it's about 50-50. Real victims versus grifters. Yeah, y'all gonna get mad, but I don't give a shit.
Know how that goes. Constantly doing that is actually making Trump look very weak, which is not ordinarily something
Indeed.
he would welcome. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, it's actually hard to figure out, and only President Trump knows himself exactly why he's doing
All
what
right,
he's
pause again.
doing.
Now I want to bring up Taco. Trump's afraid of the tariffs. So if he was afraid of it and he's Taco, why did a federal appeals court say it's illegal to do? Unconstitutional. Which, reality, it is very constitutional. But they don't read the Constitution. Well, they do, but they pick and choose.
But if you look at the way he handled Iran with those B-2 bombers taking out the nuclear facilities, if you look at what he just did today with Venezuela, that sends a very strong signal. That is a message to everybody that we are capable and willing to act to defend our interests when necessary. And yet with Vladimir Putin, it's exactly
Taking away these Venezuelan drug dealers, I feel like that is exactly what he should be doing. Making it to where it's harder for these motherfuckers to get punished.
the opposite,
that's where
not
I
a
was going
single
with that.
tough measure yet. And so I hope that President Trump, maybe he's giving Putin one more chance. Maybe he really hopes that he can get a deal. But Putin has blown him off every time and attacked Ukraine harder after each time he's spoken with Trump. And I think that is a deliberate message to Trump that Putin is not moving.
Ambassador Kurt Volker, always great to speak with you and get your insights. Thank you so much.
President Trump declaring our nation's capital is now safe as Washington, D.C. welcomes help from the National Guard.
Washington, D.C. is a safe zone right now. It's a safe city. This took place in 12 days. Now it's 15 days, but 3 days ago it became what's known as a safe zone. It's a safe city. And this city was really bad, really, really bad. We took 1,600 people out, hardcore criminals that will not be coming back anytime soon. And we're very proud of it.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser issuing an order allowing federal agents to continue tackling crime in the Capitol in order to, quote, provide the pathway forward beyond the presidential emergency. Beverly Hallberg is the president of District Media Group and a fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. She joins me now. Beverly, Mayor Bowser has not been kicked out of the Democrat Party for working with Trump to protect her citizens. Why don't other Democrat leaders follow suit?
Because they want votes.
Well, I think that's what we want them to do.
And free
The
money.
president is correct to try to encourage governors, mayors of these crime-ridden cities to work with him. She really serves as a model for what people need to be doing. My hope is that they will follow suit, because what we do have at hand is obviously a horrific crime that the president is calling out. Instead of defunding the police, which we saw since 2020, wants to defend the police. He wants to defend communities, but he also has a jurisdictional issue here. Yes, he can do this in Washington, D.C., but if we care about federalism, separation of the federal government from state and local governments, we do want the mayors and governors to ask for that help. Hopefully they'll put politics aside and actually deal with this issue, but we're going to have to see how it unfolds.
Look, it would be nice if they asked for that help, but it certainly sounds like Chicago won't be asking for that help anytime soon. Here's the latest deflection from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Chicago will continue to have a violence problem as long as red states continue to have a gun problem. The Trump administration continues to try to use the real pain.
I'm sorry? Red states don't have gun problems. There's a reason for that. How does red states owning guns create Chicago kids for having guns? When we know damn well you're probably doing the gun buybacks, or when you guys confiscate it, you turn it right back around and sell it to these kids. Because we know you're a BLM. You are all over that. You're all about black supremacy. So of course you're never going to fucking talk about real crime. Because you think it's racist to mention black people are criminals.
And loss of gun violence victims as a pretext for expanding his own power. Donald Trump is the last person in America who cares about families on the south and west side of Chicago.
He blames Trump, he blames Indiana, he blames everybody but himself. Obviously does not sound like someone who is ready to cooperate. So what do you expect to happen ultimately when Trump sends in the National Guard like he said he was going to do yesterday?
Well, they have been claiming, Democrats that is, have been claiming that President Trump is playing politics and this is all performative. What we're seeing from Democrats is what is plain politics and what is performative. I think that clip that you just played, it's so telling that instead of taking accountability from the crime that takes place in their own cities, their own state, they want to blame red state Americans. They want to blame anybody but themselves. It actually reminds me of Hillary Clinton's basket of deplorables or Joe Biden's we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's not going to work. And by the way, when it comes to guns, when you're in these communities, if you're someone who's female, older, sometimes a gun is the only thing keeping you safe, preventing from somebody from really causing deep harm. So the fact that they're making this about guns, when guns is what actually can keep people safe, I think it's just really not only poor messaging, but it's doing nothing to help these communities.
The Second Amendment follower there.
Weird that the murder rate in Chicago is down 49%. When for the past 7 to 13 years, at least 7, Chicago leads the nation in murders. They had over 550 last year.
In Texas is in no way responsible for gangs shooting each other up in Chicago. It makes no sense. Finally, House Republicans are going to huddle up with top Trump campaign officials to lay out their plan for the midterms. The invite to House members says, quote, the 2026 midterms will be defined by the performance of swing voters and Trump-only voters. This workshop will provide a clear and specific roadmap for making them yours. The invite also notes it will be taking attendance for the event, so truancy and tardiness will not be tolerated, Beverly. This is your bailiwick. This is your area. You give advice to campaigns. What would you tell the GOP to do as we look ahead to the midterms?
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people, a land that is built by workers? Are you?
This land was built by everybody. I hope you know that. I doubt slaves went all across North America building shit. I don't. Considering, look at the architecture they have in Africa. You think they would totally progress more than they were 200, 300 years ago. Like I always say, Iraq is the birthplace of civilization. Well, they haven't done much since.
Defend this
What's up, Yeti?
Oh, Lord. Again.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago.
Well, by the way, this no federal troops, they can't wear masks, they have to show badges and all that shit. They can't do that. It's all performative. They know that. What's up, Roots? You must have heard I was talking about Chicago.
No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago.
What do you mean by that?
In Chicago over the weekend, at least 54 people were shot. This is just over Labor Day weekend, 7 killed.
No!
And one of them was
People
like
died in Chicago
close
as
to
a
a
result
police
of those
station.
shootings.
Several of the incidents were mass shootings with multiple victims at a single scene. In one instance, a teenage girl was hit with a stray bullet. The violence comes as President Trump threatens to send federal agents and National Guard troops to Chicago to quell the crime there, despite objections from the city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Unfortunately, Joe, this is not unusual in Chicago, which has been plagued by gun violence for generations, not years, for generations.
In Chicago, everybody got to get down. Everybody got to get down because
you're going to have to describe tanks a little better, because when I think of tanks, I don't think of what you're probably thinking of. Come on. So do they kinda... Where's it at? Do they look like this? Granted, that's a UAE MRAP, but this is our SOCOM MRAPs. All of this that they're using for these SWAT teams and QRTs, they took the vehicles from us. We used them over Iraq and Afghanistan for over 20 years. Now, when you say tank, I think of these. That's a transport vehicle, also for patients. Also another tracked vehicle. And this is what I mean by tanks. Tanks are typically tracked vehicles, not wheeled. There's no way a tank can roll through Chicago. It would destroy the streets. I'm not saying I don't believe you, but we don't even roll our tanks through Clarksville. Oh, we don't have tanks here. Fort Riley, Fort Benning. We never rolled tanks through downtown. Any tracked vehicle. Humvees, big trucks, interstate. But never side streets.
they shoot. Everybody down.
Unless that's a new ROE.
Look, these kids are running. They shooting. We can't have no fun in Chicago, man. No fun, man. This is terrible. This might be over with, because I gotta figure this out.
Dude, that traffic crash.
It's just gone from bad to worse to disaster.
No one really feels safe. It's impossible to feel safe in a city like this, especially with the leadership we have.
These kids are carrying guns like around the ages of 8 years old, and they're killing other 8-year-old kids with guns. It's insane.
My opinion, not enough police officers. The police officers' hands are tied.
So the police is really unappreciative for offhand under Brandon Johnson.
They shouldn't.
Lori Lightfoot, J.B. Pritzker. Those are three are the reason why nobody don't want to be a police.
Their policies when it comes to crime is not working at all.
I think the biggest piece of the pie has to be more police officers, more protection. That's what
But
the
you don't
people
have the
want.
money for more
No one
police
in the
officers.
administration, the president or
You're
anybody under
$1.5
him,
billion
has
in
called
debt.
anyone in my administration and me,
That's
but
just
not
the
called
city.
the city of Chicago or anyone else. So it's clear that in secret they're planning this. Well, it's an invasion with U.S. troops if they in fact do that.
What's wrong with you people?
National
It's
Guard
not
is
an
not
invasion. It's the reason that Donald Trump has to get involved. It's because the leaders of these blue states can't keep crime off their streets. They can't do anything about it. They're not trying to do anything about it. The message we hear is we like the violence. We don't want Donald Trump to help us. They're so anti-Trump, Lawrence. You've been to Chicago how many times? Our friend Gianna Caldwell lost his brother, was shot, and they've never caught his killer. You have people in Chicago saying that the governor and the mayor, they have security. Right. Why not security for the rest of the residents?
Surging federal agents, ICE, CPB, to a state that has over 500,000 illegal immigrants in it, many of them live in Chicago. I mean, the federal government is going to enforce federal law. I hear Pritzker complaining that there's no coordination, but I also heard the mayor say he's ordered the police department not to cooperate with federal officials on this immigration crackdown. So how are you supposed to cooperate if the mayor is ordering his own police force not to do so? The fact is you have people in this country illegally. The president has promised since he was running his campaign last year that he planned to crack down on illegal immigration. He's sending federal agents to Illinois to do that. I'm not entirely certain why everybody is so angry or surprised about this. I mean, we're here enforcing federal immigration law in a city that we can argue about whether it's a crisis or not, but there were 53 shootings there over the weekend. It's pretty violent.
Why would the administration call them when they've resisted every single move? For example, they tried to get the Chicago police, and by the way, the rank and file cops want to comply with this, but their city leadership doesn't want to comply. Give us the criminals that are in your city. If we put an ICE detainer on them, hand them over. They don't want to even honor that with people that are in custody for crimes that they've already committed on their citizens. So why would the president call them about the National Guard so they can give the criminals the information so they can dox more cops?
I think that it's interesting to watch Pritzker and Mayor Johnson work together. Mayor Muriel Bowser we don't have a governor here in D.C., and so we didn't have to work with anybody kind of in the state ahead of them. Mayor Johnson has been really, really forthright and pretty blatant when it comes to criticism of this rollout. I think that it's been interesting to watch Pritzker, who's
Remember
been a
when
little
Brandon
bit more
Johnson
nuanced.
tried to take a $30 million high-interest loan for the CTU from China? I'm pretty sure he's still part of the CTU in Chicago. Am I right, Roots?
I hope he's able to get there a bit more. But at the end of the day, people in Chicago care about crime, and Democrats are underwater when it comes to law enforcement and law and order.
Why were all these resources okay when I covered the DNC at the National Convention for the Democrats? They had the National Guard there. They had federal law enforcement there. So when all the politicians and former presidents and they want to host a big party for a week, it's okay to bring the National Guard and all the feds in for that, but to protect them while they're there because they know it's not safe.
So they want to protect politicians and celebrities more than the actual people of Chicago. That makes sense. That makes sense because that's who votes for them, the actual people.
There. But when the people that live there on the day-to-day basis have to go through this, oh, okay, no, it's criminal. The president wants to elude democracy.
You hate Donald Trump because you were told to hate Donald Trump. I get it. You were lied to. You were manipulated. They told you he was evil. They told you he was racist. They seeded the mistrust. But Donald Trump has done absolutely nothing to you. As a matter of fact, he's working tirelessly to make our country great. And the same people who seeded this mistrust are the same people that have proven time and time again that they themselves are not to be trusted.
Isn't that wild?
Senate Minority
Chicago's
Leader Chuck
supposed
Schumer.
to be safe, but they don't really feel like they're safe, huh? Let me see. Yeah.
Schumer is warning his colleagues that the Trump administration is provoking a standoff by moving forward with the so-called pocket rescission plan. He writes this: "It is clear that Republicans are prioritizing chaos over governing, partisanship over partnership, and their own power over the American people." Joining me now is Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw.
Dan
Congressman, it's great to see
Crenshaw.
you. Thanks so much for being here this morning. What's your reaction to Schumer and his comments about the Republicans going into this potential shutdown?
Well, Schumer never makes any sense when he talks, so it's hard to comment on what he said. Look, but the appropriations process it's the same dance every single year. There's going to be a lot of grandstanding. It's going to be a difficult negotiation. You do need those 60 votes in the Senate. Neither party ever has 60 votes, so there always has to be some kind of compromise. And when there is no kind of compromise, we end up with a CR for the rest of the year. And there's a lot of drawbacks to that. We'd be operating still off effectively the same budget that was under Biden and Democrats. So I do think we want to get somewhere this time. Our goal as Republicans, as I think the speaker just mentioned on your clip there, is to actually have something to present. That's why we're voting on these appropriations bills. And the Democrats can claim that we're the agents of chaos or whatever other flowery, crazy language they want to use. In the end, if they're not coming up with a list of things that they want us to compromise on, we cannot answer the question on what we would give in order to have a better deal for Americans. And they're the ones not doing that. So that's all we can do is do our job.
So is it your expectation that Democrats
Dude, I just went to the
will be,
CTR Chicago website. They say that their biggest thing is a bear cat.
threats of rescission, and the end game is
And
just
that's
flat
that's
funding
550.
a continuing
Chastity.
resolution at the end of the month?
At the end of the month, you
So
can
Chicago
definitely
SWAT
imagine a
doesn't have
continuing
Chicago
resolution
Police
for how
Department doesn't
long.
have
I would
it. Could
imagine
be
a
the
short
National
period
Guard.
of time, just enough time
But
to
there's no
actually
reason they would have
continue
cannons
some
on them.
sort of
Or
negotiations. Look, Republicans,
tank
the
rounds,
president, I
because
think
that would go
we want-
against even Geneva Convention. Because it has to be force on force. Not force on force, equal force. So launching a tank or a rocket down a street in Chicago is unlikely.
a deal. We want a good budget that protects taxpayers, that isn't spending on crazy programs that we've uncovered since
I don't
the
know,
Biden
dude.
days.
Yep.
From what I
think
found, I
it's
don't
pretty
see
reasonable. Our job is to make sure that we at least get our appropriations bills done out of the House sooner than later, so that we can move this process along the way it's supposed to be moved along.
Meanwhile, President Trump is cracking down. He announced a lethal strike against Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists yesterday as they were sailing to the U.S. from Venezuela with a boat full of drugs. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that the administration will wage combat against drug cartels wherever they are. Watch this.
Will you act on Venezuelan soil against the Maduro regime?
Well, this is a counter-drug operation. We're going to take on drug cartels wherever they are and wherever they're operating against the interests of the United States. The president's top obligation is to secure the national interest and the national security of our people. I know of no president that means that more than this one. Our president now, President Trump.
So what do you know about this, Congressman? 11 alleged narco-terrorists were killed in that strike this week. You're leading a task force to combat Mexican drug cartels, right?
That's correct. I mean, well, I lead the work on the cartel issue. Yes, whether there's a task force is another question. But look, this is President Trump doing exactly what he said he was going to do. It's a massive escalation. I'll say that. I've never seen a case where we've actually targeted a drug running boat. Usually we try to interdict them. But you know what? Interdiction is costly. It's expensive. It's extremely difficult. And I think this is a very welcome escalation. It's in international waters. So I find it ironic that the Maduro regime is calling this some kind of active war, while also claiming that he has nothing to do with drug running operations and the cartels. I'm sorry, but both things cannot be true at once. So remember, the charge from the Trump administration is that Maduro absolutely is in cahoots with the cartels, with Tren de Aragua. So for him to be crying foul on this is sort of him showing his hand. But it's a welcome escalation for the simple reason that it's a deterrence measure. It's one thing to be caught. It's another thing to think that if you embark on this, you know, with a ton of cocaine in your boat, headed towards the United States, and fentanyl laced with that cocaine, perhaps poisoning Americans.
And this is through the Gulf of
Just
Mexico.
get captured,
Or
but
Gulf of
also
America.
you might have a missile.
The Caribbean.
Well, I mean, the president is not backing down. He's cracking down across the board. He's
Yo,
also
if they blew
vowing
that
to
fucking
keep
boat up,
cracking down on crime across
they
the
get
country.
all that shit?
He confirmed yesterday that he will deploy the National Guard troops to Chicago soon. afternoon. He said he didn't give a date, but we're going in.
Oh, 101st
Illinois
is
Governor
gonna head
J.B.
down to the
Pritzker
Mexican
is
border.
pushing back. He claims there's no crime
Command
emergency
General
in
and all that.
Chicago. He's vowing to fight the president's actions every step of the way. But look at these numbers just from the Labor Day weekend. 8 people were killed over Labor Day and at least 50 others wounded in shootings over the holiday weekend, Congressman.
Yeah, but we hear these wild numbers from Chicago all the time. I mean, 50 people wounded by by gunshots, and it's in very specific places. It's not all over Chicago. So it's not crazy to think that a little bit of extra security might be welcomed by everyone, especially the 99% of the residents that are not shooting people.
Yep.
When you talk about these crimes, you're talking about very concentrated areas with very few people committing the crimes. The police know who they are, but the police can't really act on it because you've got liberal judges, liberal DAs that let them off on cashless bail reform. That was actually one of the best things Trump administration has done very recently, is an executive order that says no more federal funding for jurisdictions that use cashless bail.
Yeah,
in
that's
Texas,
true.
we also
Yeah.
just made that illegal. Cops can't arrest people when they know that they're about to be let loose as soon as they put them in jail by some liberal judge. So, look, people fundamentally need security. That's how you then build businesses. That's how you can safely start sending your kid to school. There's so many other things that follow from security.
Yeah. Real quick before you go, Congressman, 800 new laws in your state, Texas, going into effect this week. The Texas State House passing the new redistricting map. Do you think the GOP gains seats going into the 2026 midterms?
Yeah. I mean, in Texas, it looks like we gain about 5 seats. That'll obviously be very helpful when it comes
people
to
still got to vote.
House. And if we want to keep our agenda going, you need to keep the House. And we have a razor-thin majority right now. We've got to fight for every single seat. So, looks like redistricting is done. We might be welcoming 5 new Republican members.
All right.
Might be. Like I said, they think they opened up 5 new seats for the Republican Party. However, they still have to vote on those candidates. Come on. Smarten up.
Jack Pagano, Tampa Post, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel.
All right.
All right.
Hooah.
Hurricane
You said Navy,
Alcatraz,
retard.
Alligator Alcatraz. Is it a dead alligator? And President Trump is not looking too well. He's looking very sickly. What's your opinion?
So on Alligator Alcatraz, just understand what happened. It's running. Deportations are continuing. You had a very partisan judge that issued a ruling saying that that DHS couldn't send any more there until, whatever. So they appealed. We're doing that. So DHS hasn't sent more, but all that stay stuff, that's happening right now. We stand ready, willing, and able to accept who DHS sends. Remember, our role at the state, we don't conduct the actual deportations. We process, stage, and then DHS
Facilitate.
And because we've had Alligator Alcatraz, you've had thousands and thousands of deportations that might not otherwise have happened because they didn't have enough room to be able to do it. So we're ultimately going to win that fight. Now, I also announced that we had demand even beyond Alligator Alcatraz, and so we have this deportation depot up in Northeast Florida, Baker County, right?
Yo, this motherfucker, he's got like a name for 3 fucking camps already. It's like a goddamn, like a video game. When you get to name the cities.
Or to Jacksonville. So that'll be able to hold another 1,000 to 1,500. Now, one of the reasons why we did Alligator Alcatraz is because that's an airport down there. And so they built the temporary facilities with federal reimbursement. I mean, I hear people say, oh, Florida is out this money. No, we spent money and we will get reimbursed. And getting illegals out, that saved you money because they are costly if they go to the medical care or all this other stuff. But we're getting reimbursed for all that stuff. So Florida will clearly benefit from a taxpayer perspective. I don't think there's any question about that, given all that's said and done. But there's the runway right there. So you go a couple thousand feet and DHS can pick them up and go. So that was why it was really attractive from an efficiency perspective. Baker County is not far from the Lake City Airport. It's just going to require loading people and drive in. You know, it's like maybe 10 minutes down the road.
Did you say
and
the
then they
Panhandle's
could
name
be
yet?
Flown out of Lake City. So that will happen. That will be good. You know, we're also working because, you know, we were up in Panama City, you know, talking with law enforcement. And, you know, you're in the Panhandle, sending to Alligator Alcatraz
Here comes another
is
one.
a long way. Even sending to the deportation depot in North Florida, you know, that could be 3 to 5 hours depending on where you are in the Panhandle. And so, you know, they were like, is there a way we can get a facility that's going to be closer to us? And so we said yes. So we're actually in the process of figuring out how we can set up a Panhandle pokey, and we're going to have that in the Panhandle. And so the mission continues. And so I think like some of the report act like, oh, well,
Satire's
DHS
becoming
isn't
reality.
sending any more there, therefore, no. DHS hasn't sent us any more since that judge ruled. But this week, we're applying to have that decision stayed. Here's what they did, just so, this is so outrageous. So this is a Collier-Dade airport, and it's actually located in Collier County. Dade does run it, but it's actually in Collier. So it's kind of, you know, we're the uninhabited part of southern Florida. And so you have that there. It's been there for decades. So we said, you know, we had been working with the feds on all the immigration stuff. We have all these 287G. We've done more to facilitate the president's agenda on this than any other state by far. But the one thing they kept saying is, look, we don't have enough DHS facilities to stage and to process before they're sent back to their home countries. And it's not as simple as just, hey, you go, like there is a process, like they are getting due process. Now, some of these people have already had due process. They've already ordered to be removed, and yet they still haven't followed that order. So it may vary depending, but the bottom line is you do need something. So that's why they said, is there a way you can expand capacity? Well, you know, Sheriff Lima, you know, they've got criminals, normal criminals they've got to deal with. Like, we can't say like, oh, the local jails should just have to do this. Now, they have done it to a certain extent, but there's definitely a limit to that. Our state prisons, you know, we have people get convicted, go to state prison. And so we're like, okay, you know, we'll work to do it. So we did the one at Dade Collier Airport, Alligator Alcatraz, because you have the runway right there. And it was our view, once they were there, they weren't going to escape, and then they could be flown out. And I think that has actually worked very well. And they have picked up the pace of deportations. So people sued, and they said, oh, no, you can't do that. Why?